Half a day and welcome to another edition of Island Images. I'm Lieutenant Tim Gorman, the Joint Region Marianas Public Affairs Officer. With us today is retired Navy Commander Mike Dodge. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Pleasure to be here, Tim.
So we're here at Nimitz House on Flag Circle on Nimitz Hill. And we're going to talk a little bit about the history of not only this house, but also of Nimitz Hill and Flag Circle. So come join us and we'll see what it's all about. So sir, if you don't mind, let's, I guess, start at the beginning. So you were telling me earlier that 1945 about is when Admiral Chester Nimitz moved in here. Is that the first time the U.S. Navy had a presence on Nimitz Hill?
I believe so, except for, of course, the battle for the liberation of Guam. And it came right up through here and over onto the Fonte Plateau over there. But yes, he moved his fighting or battle staff from Pearl Harbor to Guam in January of 1945. He brought basically the main staff out here.
And from what you know, is the footprint of current day Nimitz House the same footprint of his house?
Yes, it is.
Yes, okay.
They, when they rebuilt it, they built the current houses in the same style and same place as the old one.
So now we're inside Nimitz House, and for those of you at home, as you can see, it's a little empty in here. So Admiral Bolivar has moved out and is getting ready to depart Guam, and Admiral Chatfield, our new commander, has yet to move in. So that's why it's a little empty, and it's a good opportunity for us to come in and kind of talk about its history. Commander Dodge, you were telling us January 1945, Admiral Nimitz moves in, and help us understand what was Guam like at that point.
Well, Guam was being converted into the largest supermarket in the world for military equipment. It was being built as a main support base for the invasion of Japan. There were roads being built where roads hadn't never been before. Seabees were in the process of trying to turn Agana into the street plan of Santa Monica, California. Up here on Flag Circle, this was specific quarters built for his staff, and each of the buildings or homes here housed the principal officers as a mini bachelor officers' quarters for his senior staff officers. I believe his chief of staff, Admiral Sock McMorris, lived in this building here with Admiral Nimitz. And it turns out there were stragglers living in caves down at the base of this cliff that the house is built on. And evidently one night, his Marine Guards engaged those stragglers in not a firefight of some sort. They were probably shooting more than the Japanese. And Admiral Nimitz got his .45 out and went out and joined the Marines. And he later remarked in his biography, it was the only time he felt he directly participated in the war.
This one you said is, you believe, the same footprint that his
Yes.
house was. How about the other houses on Flag Circle? Were they all relatively the same size, same place? Or?
Yes, and they all have the little atrium or garden in the middle. They were all constructed of what I would call Hawaiian style or plantation style huts. 4 of them made into a square. Years later, because Guam's a birthplace of the Pacific Typhoon, they realized in the 70s that there was no typhoon shelter for the Admiral here, so they built a concrete garage next door with living quarters for his Marine driver, but that's where he would go for a typhoon. Eventually, they were all replaced with concrete buildings, reinforced concrete. This building, actually, they left the rear building intact. When I returned for staff duty in 1999, Rear Admiral Jonathan Greenert was ComNav Marianas at that time. He still had 1/4 of the old building. They removed that during his time and finished the construction.
And so you told us a bit of trivia. How many Nimitz houses are there?
Well, I'm saying that there's, of course, this Nimitz house, and then there's the Nimitz house where he lived in Hawaii, where he also had his chief of staff live with him. And then he retired onto Yerba Buena. You might know it as Goat Island, attached to Treasure Island, where the Oakland Bay Bridge in San Francisco goes through. and he retired to flag quarters there. And of course, he grew up in the original Nimitz home, which was the Nimitz Hotel in Fredericksburg, Texas.
How long after the end of World War II did Admiral Nimitz stay on Guam, do you know?
He was gone as soon as the war was over because he went on to be the Chief of Naval Operations.
Okay.
They kept the staff sections in the houses for a long time, and then I think in the 60s they started putting the commanding officers into the houses. You had CO of the Marine Barracks and CO of the Coast Guard, the Naval, it was called Naval Operating Base or Naval Station Guam, which were all connected by direct line to the command center at the headquarters here on the Hill. It started out as COMMAR, and that's when Nimitz was here and he owned everything. And in fact, that's why the top of the Mar is the top of the Mar, because this was COMMAR Hill. And then it went to ComNav Marianas, and with all the other titles. And then, of course, in recent time, for me anyway, it's become the Joint Region. This whole area has always been where you entertain, where people come from off-island. Presidents have stayed in this house. Lyndon Johnson stayed here during the Vietnam Conference. The admirals and commanders here have used this place basically as a facility to facilitate their outreach to the people of Guam.
So we are now outside in the back of Nimitz House. And Commander, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about Nimitz Hill, its role during, well, obviously the Battle of Nimitz Hill and in the initial order of battle to take Nimitz Hill.
Right. Well, this was one of the main assault areas. The Marines wanted to come up and get on Fonte Plateau, as I said, which is over across the behind us. And so the Marines assaulted, of course, into Assen there and the P right next door. And the Marines that assaulted up this way, there was also an assault that came up to what they call Bundeschu Ridge, or basically it's where Snake Road is, Route 6 Alpha coming up this way. Later, when the Marines got up here, they found a Big Eyes, a large military set of binoculars. And they looked through it and they read their maps on the beach. They were in tents and in foxholes down there, and they didn't cover them up. The Japanese had been watching their planning in the binoculars.
What were the years that Marine Corps Drive was really built and developed by the Seabees? When did that happen?
Well, they started that. There's always been a Route 1. It was part of the El Camino Real, or the Spanish Road. And as soon as I imagine, as soon as the third wave with the Seabees got ashore, they started. But they were hauling people on that road. I talked to a Navy aviation type that was sent ashore the third or fourth day to take over Tijen and make it into a naval air station, and they were using what became Marine Drive and then later Marine Corps Drive from that time on. And they're coming up through Agana, and they had a tank where the river is down there by the Pacific in the War Museum right there, or what we call Commissary Junction, and because that was a river there. And so they would just hook on to 4 trucks and the tank would drag them across the river and then they'd go on. The Seabees probably finished that road, probably in a month or 2. They chopped a big chunk out of the hill at Assen on the ocean side because you used to follow the river through. It was almost a trail. And they were very proud of that and made that into 6 lanes.
So that'll do it for another edition of Island Images. Commander Dodge, sir, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
I'll just say again, my pleasure. Being an old sailor, I like to tell sea stories, so this gives me a venue. And I hope everybody enjoyed my stories.
Thank you, sir. So until next time, adios.